everyone. Thanks for popping in and seeing what I'm doing. This is Nikki B, and I'm so happy you're here with me. Let's continue on learning about how to deal, how to spot, how to understand borderline personality disorder.
Dating may have borderline personality disorder. If you've just started a relationship with a woman and now search the internet to check that she has a borderline personality disorder, this might be your first red flag of some sort of problem with your relationship. The good news is that, ideally, you catch things early and are able to cope better with borderline personality disorder. Many men almost get involved in relationships with women with borderline personality disorders because of their unique ability to make them feel sorry and blame others for why their lives are so. Here are a few common things that could be red flags for borderline personality disorder or narcissism. 1. Will she open up violence from a history to you immediately? 2. She trashes her former boyfriend or ex-husband even before you barely meet her. Does she seem to go on and on about how he ruined her life? 3. Will her relationship with her parents remain unstable? 4. Does she tell you bad stuff about her parents? 5. Does she seem to fall in love with you very early and almost see you as her monarch in brilliant armor? 6. Has she had sex with you quickly? 7. Is it difficult for her to be friends with other women? 8. Does she currently have just one friend who appears to come back and forth from her life, or has she no friends at all? 9. Does it seem like most bad things continue to happen to her, thrown out by her boyfriend, financial difficulties, job maintenance, etc.? 10. Does it seem to have very amazing tales and reasons for why the bad things happened to her? For example, her ex-boyfriend had her credit card debt run up, which is why her reputation was bad. 11. Does she seem to want to push the relationship really fast? 12. Did you show an interest in moving in? 13. Does she have fits in front of you to scream? 14. Does she start horrendous fighting with you and she begs you to stay when you try to leave? 15. How did she buy extravagant gifts from you? 16. Was she prepared to discuss risky sexual conduct? 17. Does she use alcohol or drugs? When you answered more than a few of these questions, yes, the woman you are dating might have a restricting personality disorder. Whether or not it has BPD, it's definitely not a woman you want a long-term relationship with. Chapter 12. Borderline Personality Disorder from the Inside Out. You must understand well the symptoms of the disease to understand what is taking place in your case. If you can know patterns and what causes them, you can read and understand several ways to modify the skewed reactions. You should know enough about the facts in your life to get the defensive habits that came from real fear and assault. The assault is over, however. You can disarm. They can disarm. We should learn to respond impulsively. We should create a firm foundation from the borderline personality disorder as a ordered personality. BPD has many functions. To get your chart, you should Google the condition. Not everybody has all the features or the frequency of the reactions. I was never a cutter, but in my professional and relationships, I want to kill my chances of success. So I might change course or quit the profession and find a new one if anything goes too well. So if life is good, I don't feel it for a long time. I take it away and continue the security war again. There are other ways of doing the same thing without the physical act of slicing. Cutting is used to reduce the sensation of discomfort or intense pain. This suffering is attributed to initial traumas like parents' rejection or siblings' self-hatred. If other people have not liked or embraced you, transforming that self-image to the inside into a sense you don't value yourself is easy. You're not caring. In my situation, it goes from mother not loving me to mother not loving me. I do not like myself. I do not like myself. I don't accept myself. I do not embrace myself. I'm going to recreate this violence again when things look up by beating me. You will disrupt the chain of reactions with your own experience and determine from your latest achievements one at a time. My mother and my parents, when I was young, took things away from me as part of abuse. You take the piano lessons, my mother jealoused me and gave me the keyboard. I remember a great upright day it went out the window. Out of the window on the second floor, twirling on the ground, suspended the curtain of the house. It can be addictive to feel bad, feel pain, or feel sad. You can sense it so much that when you are alone, that is the place you go. So you want to feel the pain. Feeling bad is a form of dependency. The pain is no longer your first choice when you know emotions such as beauty. You will start living with those positive feelings more than the negative ones when you encounter and label other things, including beautiful or happy experiences. Life isn't all that happens to us and how we respond to what happens to us. We can respond for a long time in one way and change the way we react with experience, example, and care. What if you think something wrong was that your mother doesn't love you? You know that she was a kind of person who used others to fulfill her own needs without any fault. She couldn't do it if she didn't help them to satisfy her own needs. Narcissistic is one way to see the situation. What if my mother has no alternative but has handled you because of her deep poverty when she was a child? In my situation, my mother was sent to 5 and felt abandoned to stay with her grandmother. It happened during the Great Depression. Her parents, who had 5 children, had to send somebody out to help others succeed. I'm not sure anybody would explain to my mother why she had to stay for that time with my grandmother. I didn't get enough of what my mother wanted. She couldn't give any of her kids the care they wanted. She lived at a time with 3 children. She had 3 kids and mentally destroyed them all. Borderline personality disorder is an unusual reaction, such as dysfunctional families. One of the habits are made aware. The BPD individual will monitor themselves and their subsequent responses to circumstances. We should agree not to get hurt as others hurt us. We should understand that those who harmed us were ill, and we don't need to escape the expected punishment we got when we were young. We can be happy and productive. BPD exists to intelligent, compassionate, and imaginative individuals. We used our protections to avoid the penalty, and now we can run. One day at a time, the fight can be fought. The natural consequence of these unreal conditions of family abuse is post-traumatic stress. It's safe now. We should keep each other together, share our tales, and ascend into the sun. We are not defective, but are surrounded by an incomplete, anxious, and aggressive family. They must be responsible for what happened to the victims of the violence. Now we have to speak to dissipate guilt and shame. It's never been our fault. We haven't been the guilty. It's never been equal or fair. It is time to put an end to the injustice. We are part of a family group, a time of history that, coupled with ourselves, laid the best foundation for the development of this borderline personality disorder. The BPD is a logical response to a disordered condition in the home. It was a wise way to protect my fragile self from being totally destroyed by the people who supposedly loved me and protected me. Notwithstanding this unnamed attack, you and I survived. Now, with its freedoms and range of actions, you can claim your life. Like other trauma, you need to find someone who knows the condition to take you to the other side of the trauma. You don't have to face anything but enough to forgive yourself and to know that it was never your fault. We are all God's children, created in His image. The features of BPD are ways in which we can remain hidden from true and afraid attacks close to the original system. In order to get out of the way of thinking, we must feel safe, confident, and be able to sample other emotional reactions to take our new energy. Life is supposed to be much more than we think. I still feel like I'm trying to get to a safe place. I try to find a place where I can have something, and as a form of torture, I am not taken away. I want a place where I can find joy and reward. I want to be able to defend myself properly against actual attack. I want to be competent in the real world, not only the internal universe, which represents pictures of traumas of the past. Chapter 13: Borderline Personality Disorder and Anxiety. I have said several times that I am not a psychiatrist or doctor, but I think a lot about how fears affect people with BPD and conclude that BPD is closely linked to anxiety. Why do I do this? Why do I say that? Because I believe that almost every symptom of BPD is caused by anxiety. For example, fear of being alone. What do you recall when you think of being left alone as a child? Panic, right? Panic spurs a fight or flight reaction strongly. The body is filled with adrenaline. Those with an anxiety attack know all too well the symptoms: the hammering heart, the sweaty palms, the inability to concentrate. The symptoms go hand in hand with fear of abandonment and failure of people with BPD. Feeling overwhelmed certainly contributes to attacks of anxiety. Individuals with BPD are particularly vulnerable to stress and are therefore more susceptible to anxiety. For many years, I myself suffered from anxiety, but it was not diagnosed until about 2000. Attacks of anxiety: it is estimated that as many as half of all people who have an anxiety disorder have anxiety. Such feelings of pure panic and terror can last from 10 to half an hour. If you have ever had a panic attack, I must not tell you what a horrible feeling of shortness of breath, shaking or trembling, the fear of death, and the often tingling sensation and numbness may be. An anxiety attack can happen suddenly, and the first time it happens, many people are completely caught off guard. The first time it happens, there is often little to no warning. You can learn to recognize the symptoms of a start of an attack if you continue to suffer from anxiety attacks. The best news about depression is that it can be dealt with. For many people, meditation or consciousness helps a lot. The father of conscious meditation, Jon Kabat-Zinn, helped many people throughout his life. Many people find low doses of antidepressant drugs effective in addition to meditation. Nonetheless, be careful not to take benzodiazepine because they are extremely addictive. If you have BPD, the last thing you need in addition to this is a question of dependency. If your doctor prescribes a benzodiazepine, ask it before you take it. Medication depends on severity. Not all BPD patients with anxiety need medication for it. Some can control their symptoms once every day by meditating, making living statements, and spending time with friends. Anxiety is a condition, not a symptom. While the anxiety may seem to be a symptom, it is actually a disorder. Anxious people can live full, happy, and healthy lives. The illness clearly needs to be managed vigorously occasionally, but always handled. For many people who have mental health issues, depression is a condition and not a symptom. Special anxiety is what needs to be repaired, and the person can lead an emotionally healthy life. While it is not very well understood why people with BPD develop anxieties, I see both as a rotating door. I am nervous, and I do not want you to withdraw from me. I'm worried that you separate from me. It's self-perpetuating. Because it's all about shifting moods, this can cause great anxiety alone, because the individual does not know how they feel and how these feelings may or may not express themselves from one moment to the next. Fighting BPD anxiety, in my experience, the person with BPD never gets control of their disorder before they begin to address the underlying problems of anxiety. What begins the game? What can I do to relax myself? And what can I learn to know before it happens? Chapter 14: Living with Borderline Personality Disorder. The bipolar disorder has been replaced by borderline personality disorder as one of the least understood discomforts. Manic depression or bipolar has many celebrities who said that they suffered, and others contributed to making the bipolar person real and the stigma less feared. The same needs to be done with BPD. borderline personality disorder. It is not the end of the world, and you can lead a productive life with proper therapy, self-awareness, and medication. In my situation, I didn't know that until my first year in college I was different. Until that time, I had not suffered the splits in which yourself are broken. I didn't realize it could happen again after coming home from college. I figured it was the stress to get away, and I didn't like the breakdown in the class. I thought I had a pure and simple nervous breakdown, whatever that might be. The following episode took place at my first job in private schools. In the summer, I had been around the world and felt a lot of disassociation, much like splitting, where you feel hollow or lost. It's difficult to act, talk, determine if you're not constant, or feel that yourself is empty. I was lucky that sometimes I could compose myself quickly. I've been strong. My attitude was to continue. I was hoping it'd leave. Highs and lows were a long time. Anxiety, which could break, and depression. I will stay in the workplace for around 3 years and then switch. Impulsive actions are part of this anxiety, and the leader asked me what I thought when a process of psychotherapy began. I put names gradually into feelings: rage, anger, sorrow, protection, sadness, reactivity, loss, fragmentation, and others. The unpleasant feelings were first described. Another counselor took me to send me the names of other sentiments: beautiful, endearing, peaceful, content, happy, to list a few. Each feeling, sensation, thought came with her story. Her relationship with her husband, children, family, grandchildren, and interests has become a source of inspiration for the novel. The story was like a romp. It led me playfully through a lot of experience and feelings. I could not only call the feeling and add it to situations, I could open up a broader range of feelings. It was more fun than sad to be smiling. I wanted to be on the rainbow's positive side. I met her for about 5 years and would see her for another 3 years regularly. The next therapist had a strong and calm center in her core. That experience gave me a fixed anchor when I left her about 6 years ago. Over time, psychotherapy has allowed me to work with mature, attractive female doctors in a relatively constant way. I've been able to serve them on firmer ground. I was able to attend a BPD session at McLean Hospital with the last doctor. This method allowed me to know how BPD functioned as a program. I have mastered the range of emotions that try to keep in the center of the scale. Certain characteristics include money management difficulty, impulsiveness, depression, and anxiety. The sexual side effects of early childhood abuse have helped to bring together more pieces of the puzzle. I think the McLean experience helped me to look from outside to take care of myself. It moved me to independence and autonomy. It's hard to be self-confident if you don't know how to be careful. It is hard not to walk through these doors with surprising results if you don't know which doors to open them. For the BPD group, what does that mean? For many years, I have been a good teacher, realtor, a businesswoman. I've been happy for a long period and relatively calm. Overall, I'm friendly, compassionate, empathic, diligent, and moral. I enter the waters of BPD alive with a wonderful sense of humor and a belief that does not give up. I urge people with a new diagnosis to look for new treatments. I challenge you to read the material and decide what is relevant to yourself. Not all of the research features apply to us all. There are severity grades. We're not the same. What surprise? What surprise? Others can easily define us. We must be interested in reporting the illness. Others research us, but from the other hand, from the inside, we feel the pain. We are people who live very keenly in life. Really wise, we can add a great deal to the wealth of others and eventually to our lives. We've got a lot to share. The time has come for us to find the words to describe ourselves. Let the talk intensify. Chapter 15. Borderline Personality Disorder and Ambivalence Toward Love. Borderline personality disorder is a debilitating and unexplained disease. Given the fact that much has been written about it, those who consider it remain a mystery. I see BPD as a condition caused by severe childhood trauma. While not everyone who suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder suffers from BPD, practically everyone with BPD has PTSD in my experience. The early traumas of these individuals have caused them to have worsening symptoms. Patients with BPD are afraid of abandonment, but they expect to be treated in the same way as they grew up. As a consequence, they often provoke people to reject them in unconscious attempts to address their fears. They can control when and how if rejection is inevitable. Such people often have complicated relationships that are even tormented. In depth, they conclude that children's violence or neglect may have been justified, and so they have tremendous ambivalence about intimacy. We both want love and terror, persuaded that it is connected to cruelty or refusal. Because they feel bad or defaulty, they are engaged in a lot of self-destructive behavior. Some of them are cries for salvation. These can also damage others, reactivating unhealthy relationships with which they have grown up unconsciously. Sadly, most BPD personnel are more seen as troubles than as seriously injured people. The abuse they encountered as children could be so subtle that they were unaware of their problem behavior. Abuse and neglect occur in many households in very subtle ways. Parents may feel overly focused and insensitive or unlovable. They can ask for emotional care, make the child feel responsible for their happiness. They can expect high expectations, lead the child to feel unable and inadequate, or they can be overly stiff and controlled and make the child feel helpless and overwhelmed. In families where the parents give many conflicting messages, whether openly or clandestinely, children raised become angry, ambivalent, and confused adults who are unsure of their own feelings and perceptions. Many of these people are turning their anger inward. Some of them act in rage and desperation. Some of them fall into paranoia, disassociation, or even psychotic episodes if the messages are particularly insane. Childhood trauma has a regressive personality effect and prevents people from developing into fully functioning adults psychologically. They work more like children who have been lost, act impulsively and irrationally. They go to extremes of emotion and hesitate between fury and despair. You can be provocative, uncooperative, and challenging, but what you most need is to know you are safe, loved, and understood. The therapist's challenge is not to live up to its refusal expectations, but rather to provide these people with the stability, healthy frontiers, and reassurance they have always needed.
And that's where we're pausing today. Thanks again for hopping on. Please hit that like and subscribe button today so we can continue on our book.